Good morning, everybody, and welcome to IGTV. With us right now is Mark Kappers, and Mark is delivering the InfraGard Insight today on developing good security strategy. Take it away, Mark.
Morning, Joe. Good morning, everyone. This morning I'm going to be talking about developing your own security strategy for your security group. Basically, what inspired me is Virginia Prostrel recently wrote a really good article in Bloomberg talking about various large organizations' success, whether they had a good strategy or a bad strategy. And it got me thinking about my experiences in various corporate environments and how all the buzzwords and the catchphrases tend to distract you from your own goals. So I thought it would be worthwhile to talk about how to develop your own good strategy for a security group and then align that with what the organization is doing. So why do we need a good security strategy? Excuse me. Given the shifting direction the leadership missives typically have, you have guiding principles, organizational mission statements, and other leadership snowflakes. It's important to develop your own security strategy that aligns with your organization's goals, but at the same time, you need to be able to help yourself lead and monitor your tactical and operational teams in the execution of their duties. So some of the reasons you should develop your own strategy: basically, if you're the head of the security organization or part of the security organization, you're a security leader and you're a subject matter expert. You understand the security and the privacy issues, as well as your own operational organization and the tools and procedures they use to do their jobs. And having your own internally developed strategy helps you manage and measure the operations and what you're trying to do with your tools and your process. And it gives you an idea of the level of achievement you have towards those goals. So getting into it a little bit, when you talk about strategy is really a facet of leadership. And it's very easy to confuse the difference between good leadership and good management. Leadership is setting up the direction or the vision for the organization of the group. As if you're in place as a security leader, you have some responsibility to say, this is where we're going to go, and these are the means by which we will get there. Management, on the other hand, controls and directs the people, the resources to get to those goals in the best fashion possible. And it basically just delegates and monitors and its management, the management of all the directions set up by leadership. So the analogy between leadership and management, I think it came out of Stephen Covey's work originally. It's like building a road through a forest. Leadership says where the road's going to go, how wide it's going to be, and management is actually monitoring and executing the various tasks like clearing the forest, laying down the pavement, and building the road according to the leadership's direction from point A to point B, 4 lanes wide. So as we get into talking about particular strategy statements, what's not a strategy? And for anybody who's ever been in a large organization, this is going to ring very true. Good strategy is not what a lot of organizations think. It's not a fill-in-the-blanks mission statement that essentially kind of blathers about being a good global citizen and serving its clients by implementing a world-class sustainable practice to grow as a global leader while maximizing value. As Virginia Postrel points out in the Bloomberg article, she calls that sort of stuff baffle gap. And I think it's really a nice term. And, it's basically Dilbert fodder. So, as we all read the Dilbert cartoon, most of us know it's some of these corporate, feel-good mission statements are kind of a waste of time because they don't really tell you anything and they don't really demonstrate anything.
Hold on a second, Mark. You're a runaway train on that one. You introduced 2 brand new technical terms to InfraGard. Baffle gap, and what was the other one?
Dilbert fodder.
All right, go ahead. I had to interrupt you on that one just to get that out there.
I certainly intend to use both of them in my vocabulary going forward myself. So again, neither of those things is a strategy. You can't use a declaration that the organization will increase widget production by 20% a year for the next 5 years with a profit margin of 10%. So the other thing to look at, strategy is not just the resolve to hunker down and try harder. In the article, Kenichi Oma is quoted in another McKinsey paper that looks at a 1989 Harvard Business Review article, as doing more better. So strategy isn't just effort, it's not financial projections, and it's not wishes. So leading the question, what makes a good strategy? A good strategy statement has a challenge statement, which is basically a kernel of your diagnosis of the problem or the issue or the challenge that you're facing. It should also have a guiding policy for dealing with those problems or challenges, and it should include the boundary conditions and the limits for the solution and the processes. It should also have some level of coherent action statement to carry out that policy or implementation. So as we are developing our own strategy for our organizations, what do we need to assess? And again, going back to the basics, you need to understand your organization's mission and goals. You need to understand the information assets and the infrastructure and what the respective confidentiality, integrity, and availability requirements are. You need to make sure you've identified that your stakeholders and your clients. Who does the security organization support and service? Understand and refine your own mission, goals, and objectives. What do you do for your clients and your stakeholders as a security provider? What intellectual expertise, what actual business services or IT services do you deliver to your stakeholders and clients? Inventory the tools, the processes, and the services that you use to provide those things to the clients. How do you fulfill your mission as a security organization? Understand and have documented what your organization model is. Every security team's a little bit different. How does your organization structure affect how you deliver your mission? And this is also a good point to go back and identify what resources are required to do your mission, what staff, equipment, and infrastructure is needed to operate your security organization and its services. And is there a gap? Do you need more? Do you need a different set of tools? Do you need more people in a certain area, less people in another? And this leads to the kind of the underlying on that. What's your funding? Determine your funding, how the security organization is funded for its operations, and look at your new initiatives and your long-term maintenance and growth with that. So again, taking all that information and developing a good strategy for your security team, it's a good idea to generate a strategy statement, and a set of goals for every type of security service you use to deliver to your stakeholders, and use that as a goalpost for those services. Part of the issue here is you are delivering security services or providing security to affect something. That something is a goal, and in order to achieve that goal, you need to have a strategy to get there. So you're bringing stuff in from your policies and controls, but at the same time you're running services, process, and tools, and all that stuff is moving you forward towards a goal. And by understanding what that goal is, you can then measure against it. So then check to see if the measurements and the metrics that you're collecting can be used to measure success or failure against that desired goal. And generate an aggregate security strategy from all those little individual strategies and make sure they all feed up to it, so that your overall mission is aligning with the individual strategies for deploying this stuff, as well as you're aligned with the overall strategy of your organization. So your security strategy ought to be helping your organization achieve its overall business or mission strategy. I will have more links up on the chat window in a couple of minutes, and that's essentially developing strategy in a nutshell.
Yeah, Mark, you touched upon so many different areas there, which I think probably a lot of our members know about, right? But this is the stuff when you get so deep in the trenches and so deep in the daily routine, you kind of forget about all this stuff and you kind of bypass it because there's so much of the business that gets in the way of everything, right?
And that's exactly, if I had a theme to this talk, it's basically, use the outline that I laid out to kind of get your head off the bark of the tree so you can see the forest a little bit. And again, with our daily churn in organizations, it's easy to get caught up in the tactical day-to-day operation stuff, and at the same time you've got all these kind of what I would consider useless administrivia for, morale boosting rah-rah stuff that really takes your eye off your own ball. And the only way that you're going to understand your own goals is if you develop a means to get to them. And so having, just even a little bit of a one-page strategy page separate from your policies and separate from the stuff that you got to feed your leadership is a good way to make sure that your tactical and daily operations get you where you need to go.
Yeah, well, Mark, as usual, I keep telling you this week after week, and I do mean it sincerely. You've come up with some great things and some really great guidance for our members out there. And like we tell everybody, Mark does put the links up there. The links remain up there for a week, and go out and get them. All right, it's part of the gold here. All right, thanks, Mark.
You're welcome, Joe. Have a good morning.
You too.